Alec, what do you do about these first halves? Because obviously they are what they are, and you don't want them to happen. How can you go about altering it?
Well, talking about first halves, it's two. Do you know what I mean? So I think people earlier in the season were saying, what are we going to do with our second half? Do you know what I mean? Because if you go back to Fulham, we're winning 2-0. The games at home, we'd normally started really well, and then second half, people are talking about us hanging on. So it's sort of roles reversed, if you like, but it's for 2 games. I mean, the fact is, we didn't come out the blocks as well as we should have done against Barnsley. Made a couple of changes at half time, made a difference. Didn't come out the blocks against Huddersfield as well as we should have done. Made a change at half time, made a difference. But ultimately, we need to start for the first whistle because, like in any league, if you're going to have to try and chase the game, 1, you leave yourself vulnerable, and 2, it allows them to hold on to something that they've already got. Do you know what I mean? So they fight tooth and nail to make sure they keep that lead. And the fact that we've only come back for one time where we've been a goal against us, being Nottingham Forest, doesn't really make that good reading.
Yeah, that's a really tricky one, isn't it? Because people will question the character of the players when they can't get themselves, they can't turn around an early deficit. Yeah. We've talked probably the last year about however long, about how important the first goal is. Yeah. And I guess that's how do you go about correcting that sort of an issue, or can you put your finger on why that is happening? As in why you can't turn around those early goals into a positive result? As you said, it's happened basically once so far this season.
Yeah, it's happened once so far this season. The one thing I would say as well, but in a lot of the games, obviously that we went and won, which I think is 10 and 11, we score first generally. The other games, I think my natural response, and I think the team's natural response, is to go and try and get the first goal. And naturally that leaves you more vulnerable at the back. I'm not really the type that wants to just sort of feel your way into the game, and we want to try and take initiative if we can and go and really put them in the back foot. But like we've seen in the last 2 ones, if you go and commit men forward and you don't really do it properly, or you don't apply pressure in the right areas and nick it and keep it, then you leave yourself vulnerable. And what ultimately has happened is it's cost us the first goal, and then we've had to go on and chase the game, which makes you even more vulnerable because you need to commit more bodies forward.
When you reflected maybe in hindsight, do you sense anything from those 2 first halves when they haven't really happened in the team as you send them out? Or is there anything, or is it literally you there and they've gone out and you're like, we don't look at it?
Football's such a strange game. I've had teams that are really quiet in the changing room and then go out and they're absolute animals in the first half, and you look and think, that was really the calm before the storm. And I've had other teams where they look really vocal, really focused, and then they go out and they don't turn up and they don't produce. I don't think that there's something where you look and think, oh, we're going to be fine before we walk out here. Because if you sensed that it wasn't going to be fine, you would do something about it before you got out. So I think it's about performance on the pitch, it's performance on the day. It's how the decisions that you make. There's 2 things in football. The decisions you make when you've got the ball, the decisions you make when you haven't got the ball. And if you get most of them right, with and without it, ultimately you as an individual will have a good game. Now, if you can have more of your players doing that, and collectively you've got a shape and a structure about you, then naturally you would like to think that if you've got good players, you've got a good chance of winning games. Do you know what I mean? I think football at times can be really, really, people complicate it, and it really is quite simple. Because if you look at the Barnsley and the Huddersfield game, the difference between first half and second half, although a change of personnel in terms of one player for the second game, the boys applied themselves a hell of a lot better. I mean, they ran more, they get in, they bounced their faces. When they got the ball, they kept the ball. That was the biggest difference in the game.
Quite a few negatives obviously around at the moment. But in terms of Sebastian Bissong, and he's had a few negatives thrown at him over the course of the year as well, but I thought against Huddersfield that's as well as he's played in quite a while, and he's obviously been given another chance. Are you happy what you're seeing? Because there's been a lot of the focus on Tim, but in essence...
Yeah, but I think what will always happen at every club, right? Any club I've ever been involved at, and even for an outsider looking in at a lot of clubs, fans have got their favourites and ones who either get made a scapegoat or get picked on or whatever. That's always the case. Do you know what I mean? And there's no really rhyme or reason for it, because sometimes what you tend to find is some of the players at the clubs are actually one of their best players, and for whatever reason the fans don't take to them. Do you know what I mean? And I think Seb's come in for a bit of unfair criticism at times, whereas I think there's other guys that maybe have underperformed, but it goes unnoticed. Do you know what I mean? But that's just the nature of the beast. That's what happens at times. So.
Do you view the Huddersfield game any differently now to how you did after it?
No. I thought we lacked energy in the middle of the park. I thought the change that I made and how we went about the second half showed that I recognised where our shortcomings were in the first half and how to rectify it. That's what I thought.
And just on January, I mean, we seem to have been asking questions about short-term issues for so long, but clearly the January transfer window is a long-term thing, and that's almost here now. Have you been able to focus on that? Have you been able to plan for it? Are you happy with how you want it to pan out?
Yeah, but to be honest, we've got 4 or 5 guys that their sole job is to make sure that they're focused on the January window and looking at targets and looking at possibilities for us to sign, looking at strengthening the squad, look at the average age of the squad. Do we need to get the age down? Do we need to get positions filled? So all that sort of stuff is in the hands of guys who are employed by us. That's their sole job for the whole year. So it's not as if that ever really gets neglected. But what happens is the closer we get to a window, the more I get involved, the more the coaches can get involved, the more the chief exec will get involved. Because for large parts of the season, apart from watching players, you can't do anything about it. There's nothing to be done because the window's closed. So obviously, as we get closer to January, it becomes more prominent, more relevant. But we've had a whole group of guys working on it for the whole year.
Of course. Have you found that you're getting more involved now?
Yeah, of course. Like yesterday afternoon, spent my whole afternoon watching players. This afternoon, I've got the exact same. And then we get our iPads away with us where we watch everybody. And then I've been to recent games where I can try and get up there and cast an eye on them in the flesh, which is even better if you can do it.
One more, James Maddison, and I know we've talked about him recently quite a bit in recent weeks too. There was a suggestion that in the Scottish press that there was a green light for him to stay on at Aberdeen. I don't know if that's true or not, but also, I mean, would you want to get him here, see how he does here before anything then happens after that?
No, what will happen is I've spoke to the manager, I've spoke to his agent as well, and what will happen is James, dependent on what happens here in the window, will either remain at Aberdeen or he'll come back depending on what happens in the window. That's basically where it is.
Okay. Will he be here in that period? Because I guess he's...
Yeah, well, they've got a winter break, so James will join up with us and do a bit of training with us while that winter break's going on.
Which does at least give you a chance to see him down here as well, because I guess he's been here sporadically since he's been up in...
Yeah, but I know what James offers, but as I'm sure it's been discussed as well, we've got Wes and we've got Alex Pritchard, and trying to fit them all in the team at the moment is proving really difficult. And if you add James into the mix, he needs to make sure that he's getting enough game time because he's only a baby and he needs to make sure that he's developing. So that's why the Aberdeen loan for him's been a good thing.
Excellent. Thanks, Zach. Cheers.
Cool. Thanks, Zach.
That is. Cheers.